Hello, this is Jared playing Oxygen Not Included. Starting off today, wondering why this dupe Cats here is calling one of the... Oh, I think it's calling this guy here. They're a little bit tied up, so they're kind of stuck there forever, and at least until one of these guys won't be that one with its shade, but maybe the one behind it is broke free. I've got full amount of critters there and there, so they're essentially not going to go anywhere. This is a little annoying. What I'm going to do is just tell this dude, move off there, and we'll see if they come back and get someone gets stuck in that situation again. I'm hoping now that they're tied up, they're not considered able to get in there. I assume what happened when the dupe started to call them before someone else actually had wrangled them. Alright, well, with that out of the way, let's go up here, because what I'm doing is I'm building this transit tube that will drop dupes off in this zone. And I've got a ladder up here to do some construction, and I want to ease the transportation up and down. So I think we'll start with putting a fire pole in like this, just so the dupes can get down a little bit quicker at least. Notice a little bit of carbon dioxide and chlorine building up, heading towards my base. So I'm carving out this area to let gases escape and ultimately get down to this pump so that we can take care of that excess carbon dioxide and chlorine. So just realize on this asteroid, plastic isn't being created, because carbon dioxide is plugged up over here. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a pump way over here that's thinning natural gas here. I think it's going to be beneficial to have one over here as well. So we'll be able to pump out gas in two locations. Could put in the same logic here, looking for oxygen, not oxygen, with a filter gate. And if that's the case, I'll pump that towards this for storage of natural gas and possibly carbon dioxide. So I have a new cooling line that's accessing this new transit tube access, and the idea is I want to have this accessible to space. I don't have enough plastic to bring pipes up here, but I will soon enough. And what that's going to allow the dupes to do is get up here when they want to do construction really quickly. I've already made a little bit of progress, but they can use a fire pole to get down. If they want to go back to the base, they can do that. And this will maintain its temperature with this ethanol line that's going across it with the conductive panel. So with that, I'm going to wait till enough plastic to bring this up, but we'll continue construction underneath this zone. This is where I'm going to be processing my rad bolts and producing a lot of power with these steam turbines. So I'm going to have very hot steam, therefore I put insulated ceramic tiles here. I put a little spacer here. This is going to be for creating a door if I want to separate this into two spots. In case I want to make power plants, we'll make things a little bit better that way. And then we'll start putting in huge amounts of drywalling underneath here. Decide what styling to put in there. And then we'll actually put in a nuclear reactor in this zone. It's been a while since I sent this dupe up to create some data banks. They're currently running out of food. They don't have any more plastic to produce, so it definitely makes sense to have them go back down. And they can unload those data banks back to the world. And start helping with the general construction of the base. One thing I did notice... I go back inside that rocket, actually. The food has actually gone bad. First thing I want to do, I want to make sure I move that out. That's essential. So I don't want to create polluted oxygen. Actually, let's verify that we don't already have polluted oxygen. Oh, we do. Yeah, okay. Well, let's move it out, and we'll have to get in there and recreate a vacuum, unfortunately. Which means my cold fridge, which actually... is cold, is no longer going to be existent if I destroy this, but There's not really any point if there's no vacuum in there. So it's gonna go. So the temperature of this area is starting to go up a little bit. Minus 36. It was minus 60 in some places to begin with. So temperature has gone up quite a bit, which means this ethanol line is working. But that's not going to go forever. Eventually, I'm going to run out of the coolness of this zone. So what I want to do is make sure I start having a process to create my own cooling. And a main source of heat, especially since I'm going to need a lot of steel for up in this zone, is from the metal refinery. And I don't have a process for dealing with the heat from the metal refinery, so that's what I'm going to do next. So what I did is I curved... Oh, someone's stuck. Let me get you out of there. I'm going to create some steam turbines here. I'm going to have a container area underneath that with steam, and we'll use that to handle the heat from the metal refinery. So some of the construction I was making over on this asteroid is complete. Now I have a pump over here that starts to remove the excess gas, natural gas, carbon dioxide, and have that sent over here for filtering and storage in these 3 zones. Also have a separate line over here that's dedicated just making sure the carbon dioxide from this guy is taken away so this doesn't get backed up, so that we can continue to produce plastic. So I have 3 steam turbines. I've got a steel liquid reservoir. What I want to do is I want to have this filled up with petroleum. That's going to have a line going around here and then ultimately in and out of a future metal refinery that's going to exist over here. But I'm going to need to send petroleum into it. Therefore, I'm building a pump line to go all the way from the teleportation equipment way up here. So that's eventually going to be pushing a little bit of petroleum. If I want that to actually work, I need to have that on this side as well. So teleportation is right here. I just need to build a connection from this up to here. Actually, this shouldn't be too difficult. All I need to do is put this in. And that part of it is already done. Some more progress made on this refinery cooling systems. We actually have the metal refinery that's going to sit over here. With the 3 turbines above this, we've got this petroleum line. I've loaded that up. Now we've got an infinite cycle going round and round. What that's going to do is once this gets really hot, because we're going to get petroleum out of here that's really hot, it'll cycle through this and exchange temperature with the future steam that's in there, and of course that's going to heat the steam up, and that's where power is going to be generated. With these guys reducing the actual heat, because these things essentially take out power, or take out heat when they produce a little bit of power. So now I'm just about to close off this area here. This is the area that's going to get really hot, taking on the heat from the metal refinery. So what I want to do is add a vacuum area around here, mainly so that I can initially get a vacuum in here, so that I only get future water and then steam. But also, this is going to allow this particular block, which is really going to get very hot, to interact with vacuum here instead of just a normal tile. And I just need to run power. The other thing, oh yeah, I also decided I might as well put a thermal aquatuner in this zone at the same time, because eventually I'm going to need a mechanism to cool things down. So this is going to be used to cool off the heat from the metal refinery, but it'll also have heat from the aquatuner once I set this up with something. Now, as I'm constructing this, I am making a little bit of progress on top of the base, so let's go way up here. First of all, I see I've got my transit tube getting all the way up here. I've been putting in this pastel green back wall here. This is essentially going to be my drywalling to prevent steam from escaping a little bit more than halfway for that created. Build this temporary ladder system that goes across just so that the dupes can access all of this, but probably get rid of some of those, especially around here when the actual future research reactor is in place. So lots of work to be done up in this zone. This is going to be a while before this is created, but I don't think it'll be too long before I'm actually able to put this into action. And when I have this metal refinery going, exchanging heat with over here, I'll be able to deconstruct the metal refinery that I have over here, which is essentially just heating up this little piece of polluted water. Just recently, the other thing is this cool slush water is running again. It's going to be active for another 66 cycles, so that should be enhancing the amount of polluted water that I get. So I've sealed off this under zone here. Got a pump that is essentially just creating a vacuum, getting out all the gas thanks to this high pressure gas vent. And I'm just going to wait for this to be a vacuum before I put in some water and actually turn on this system. So up on top of my base, I'm looking for some petroleum that I would like to put here to make a liquid airlock. So I'm going to bring in a little bit more petroleum from the other world to do that. So we've got the drywalling done up on this level. What I'm doing down here is I'm adding a second insulated wall or floor. And the idea is I want to take advantage of the nuclear waste. So we're going to get a lot of nuclear waste from the nuclear reactor. I'm going to let a little bit of it sit in here, but eventually I'm going to drain it out. In my previous playthroughs, I was always leaking that out in space, essentially just getting rid of it. But now I'm experimenting with what to do with it if I want to actually draw more power from it, because it's actually pretty hot. Now, this is an experiment, so if you're following along so far, maybe don't. Maybe you want to go forward and see whether this actually works out or not. But the idea is I want to try some techniques, and I'm going to build some steam turbines here to do a second pass. Haven't entirely decided how this is going to go. But I'm going to try something, and we will all see how it works. At the same time, I'm going to look to see, I think I should, yeah, there is some petroleum to mop up. I can use that. Actually, maybe I brought too much of it over. Just stop the delivery that for the time being. I'm going to use that as a liquid lock up in that area. So I've got the dupes putting a cooling line because nearly have a vacuum here. What I want to be able to do is make sure that these steam turbines don't overheat when the system goes online. So that is going to be taking, I think it's probably going to be Brian's going to be going through it. So Brian's going to be visiting all 3 steam turbines and radiant liquid pipes with a little bit of liquid touching the machinery. That's going to make a pass through this area here, checking its temperature, and if it needs cooling, it's going to push it into the aqua tuner, and if not, it's going to send it out here just to go in a loop. We have a giant mess going on, and I realizing now that I had pipes incorrect over here. What I did is I changed this out. Essentially, I was getting priority access of new water. And I was telling any of the water that was coming out of this to not get priority, meaning that this was essentially being backed up. What I really want to do is to have water that's purified and sent out of the toilets and everything else to get priority usage. So right now, when this closes, this water goes out, goes in here, and when this is in here, this is going to have priority access now to go into the base, allowing this to drain. So hopefully it's going to be resolved. In the meantime, I am going to have to put in a few outhouses around the base temporarily while that's being resolved. And I'm going to have to, of course, do lots of mopping up to prevent the dupes from walking around their own sick. Disgusting. Alright, well, I'll get to that. This should work itself out now that I've made that change. So I've added a liquid airlock here made out of petroleum. And I just thought to myself, I see some space through this mesh tile. Like, does stuff actually leak out in space? What this kind of looks like it would. And that would be a problem if I have a lot of steam in here. And liquid, because I'll have the nuclear waste as well. So I thought I'd better test that out. So what I did is I got excess petroleum that I dumped here fall or flowing down here, and I can see it is not flowing out. So even though there's a whole graphic, you see space there in the background, you could consider there to be sort of like a tiling behind it. So that does not leak out in space, which is good to know, because I don't want to have this whole setup and realize it's all wrong because of one little thing, and that can easily happen, and oxygen not included. So that is checked off. Now I'm going to do some mopping up. I may have some issues because I'm not sure if mopping can happen in here, but we will we have to rebuild these in a second. But I'll let them do some mopping up so I at least get some petroleum. Excuse me. Units filled up first. Okay, I am alive. Let's see. Now what I'm doing, let's go down to this area. I see a vacuum has been created, and I want to create some steel for that zone at the top. And in order to do that, I want to have some liquid go in here. So I've got a vacuum, so some liquid... Oh, wait. Now, hold on. It's going to be closed. That way, because I want to maintain a vacuum over here. But I want the liquid area and eventually steam to be here. So what I need to push in some liquid. Let's do that now. So the idea is I want to get a line going in and delivering some liquid in that liquid vent. If I do a connection right here, we're using this. This is an old petroleum line that I brought in. Repurposing that now for some liquid in time. So liquid now is making its way in here. I'll fill up maybe about this much or so of liquid. That'll be enough to keep things running down here. But I've been playing this game long enough to know that one of the things that has bite me many times is flooding of steam turbines. In this case, I see some ice that will eventually melt when things warm up. That's going to potentially flood these machines. I also see ice, snow, and all that above it. So what I did is I built tiling here. So all this liquid, if it melts, and I suspect it will melt over time, will dump and not go into these guys. And that's why I built this here. But what I'm going to do is say high priority, all the things that is swept. Let's bring everything. I'll just select everything, even though technically I only need the liquefiable stuff out, just to ensure that these guys don't flood. Alright, checking out this project. I'm putting in drywalling here. Just for artistic reasons, I chose yellow down here and green up here. Or, excuse me, canary yellow. But essentially what I'm planning, I don't entirely know what I'm doing. This is a bit of an experiment. I know this is going to work out really well because I've done this several times so far. This is essentially going to be where the research reactor is. But this section is where I'm going to be pumping some of the excess nuclear waste, which is really hot, having a second set of steam turbines to keep cool. And then I might even have a third section that actually tries to store all that for the purpose of getting very radioactive material compressed into one spot that I can use to produce rad bolts. So initially I'm going to make rad bolts here. If this system actually is more radioactive, maybe I switch rad bolt production here, but for the time being I'm going to assume it'll be there. And I'd love to put some steel vent pipes up there, but I'm still waiting for water to get down into... Oh, I think past it. There it is. Yeah, I'm going to say that's enough. Let's go actually into the water system and cut that off. So that's going to be enough water to keep things nice and cool and running smoothly. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to incorporate this area as part of the main base as opposed to where the dupes have their suits on. Because right now, if they need to get to this area... Oh, this thing froze. But if they need to get down there, they have to go out these doors all the way down here. They can use the tube up to this point, and then they have to walk all the way along here. Versus just simply going down and exiting here if I made a connector. But I don't want them to have to stand in any liquid, so I'm getting rid of all the ice, snow, and all that. I'm going to dump that all here. Let's put liquefiable stuff. That's swept at high priority. We'll remove that, and maybe what I'll do is I'll put a tile right here just to prevent this from melting, as well as anything else that'll accumulate down here instead. And if that's the case, I can do a little bit mopping up. And this should be a nice clean area for the dupes to be able to produce some metal. For the time being, I think I can actually turn this system on. Let's start the process of getting some things created. Let's say 50 pieces of this, 50 pieces of steel, maybe a little bit of aluminum as well. We'll see how that starts with our new setup. Now, these things are not being kept cool yet. I do have pipes that go around them, but and in fact, it's just about ready. Maybe we'll even try. I'll do that in a moment. Actually, we'll see how this goes. I'm gonna put a connector in here, so this is going to feed down in this direction. It's of course the opposite way that I wanted it to go. So I will have to twist things around. Maybe what I'll do is go down like this. Cut here. So what is going to happen? No, wait a minute. I think what I wanted to do was this. Hold on. Let me reverse that. Undo that. So what's going to happen is coolant is going to go in this direction. Yeah, there we go. It's going to pass through this. It's going to make its way... A little confusing, but it's going to make it way past here. Yeah, that makes sense. All the way down here. It's going to go in here doing cooling if it wants. So this is the first time I'm going to use an aqua tuner to do cooling on my coolant line. Otherwise, it'll go down, escape, and go back up. And then I want to connect it to this guy here. And then if I simply make, actually, this, and we can destroy this. I think we got it. I think that'll do it. And I'll just temporarily cut there anyway. That should allow me to have my coolant line access the 3 of these guys, plus access down here. Let's make this 40. No, let's aim for 40 degrees or above, or 20 degrees rather, or above. It's going to send the coolant into the thermal aqua tuner. And we'll see. Oh, the other thing is, I wouldn't mind having some automation lights for this guy. So why don't we get rid of this, make some space for that. That way the dupes that's running this will have access to light. We'll continue the process of removing all of this liquefiable stuff that's on this floor. Make sure that gets put in here. And then I should be able to essentially make a wall right here. Let the dupes have access to get down in this zone. Just gonna check this out. Here we are. So we've got the heated up petroleum on its way out. That's gonna go over here to go into this guy and ultimately feed out and go around here. Right now, it's accessing a vacuum at the top, so that's not really doing anything, but it's accessing this liquid, which is heating that liquid up. Ultimately, that's going to turn to steam, and that will be destroyed. Heat will be destroyed in the steam turbine, or at least converted to power. Okay, so it looks like I think we've got all the or liquefiable stuff out there. Once these two things are created, I'll make my wall, and we'll have this thing ready to go. Actually, I can just put in this piece too for my lights. That's going to give the dupe that's running this the ability to see. Now, I've been building all my power or heavy conductive wires out of lead. Lead's starting to actually get a little bit low now, so I'm switching back to the normal, just the regular heavy watt wire for the time being. But that should be fine. So now I've got a wall separating these zones from the ammo suits to the regular dupe area. So the dupes can go in here. Oh, I just realized they're not going to be able to do construction on this guy unless I get a ladder in that area. But what I want to do is have a storage bin to store stuff. Temporarily going to... Actually, maybe I don't need this guy. But I'll definitely want to have this guy accessible down here. What do I... I'm just bringing the heavy wire down. I think it's going to be temporary, get rid of it later. But let's just remove a little bit of polluted oxygen. That's there. Actually, it might be beneficial to have one there as well. With that, let's put in a little bit of automation. I can even bring that up if I want. That way I can actually put in another bin there. That'll be essentially the inputs to the metal refinery. I can see coolant going through. That is the brine. Brine is passing by this, making sure these guys stay nice and cool. It is going to be heading down here. Make it pass here. It is cold enough such that we don't need to put it through the aquatuner, but when that changes, it'll automatically take place. And that's going to go up and continue going around the rest of the base to keep the base itself at appropriate temperature. Let's go check on things at the top of this base. Lots of more canary yellow tiling put in. So that's drywall. It's going to keep all the steam from escaping. Even put some behind these guys because I'm probably going to put some liquid on top of these as well as these. Actually, yeah. Put some around the edges here before I forget, because any liquid I put here I don't want to spill, of course, over this side. I already have one designed to be put in there. So this is the metal refinery with lights, with storage bin. Auto sweeper is going to provide various things like lime or fine carbon going into this. I'm going to produce some iron and ultimately some steel. I've got a cooling system to make that happy, and I've ordered a significant amount of steel. So I think that's going to do for today. And the next day, after a little bit more steel has been created, we can start actually producing some stuff up here to be able to put in the research reactor and various different pieces there. And I'm going to decide what I'm going to ultimately do with the storage of the nuclear waste. And we'll see, I think, we'll see how it goes. But I think in the next episode, we'll get the research reactor, be able to actually turn it on. And get red bolts and nuclear waste, produce power, and see how this all works out. Well, thank you for overheating. Oh, that's important. What made out of lead. Probably shouldn't have done that. Let's destroy that and disable auto repair, and I'll switch this out for something else. 53 degrees in this zone. Let's check out. We've got cooling over here. That is 37 degrees. Maybe I will drop this down to about 20 degrees. Well, that's continually running. Might just be that I need more liquid. Okay, I guess that's something that I'm going to have to look at the next episode. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I will see you in a future episode. Hopefully, where I'll continue on expanding and seeing where we can get to. Until then.